The four women every man will encounter. Not all women are created equal in the realm of relationships. In this raw and revealing segment, we break down four types of women. You have the performer, the princess, the parasite, and the partner. Men, pay attention to this, because your future depends on who you invest in. Let's dive in. I'm your boy Quattro,
I'm Diesel.
and let's dive into this topic. The four women that men may encounter.
Let's get it started first by just identifying these four types and giving a
Absolutely.
little context to it, and then we
Hmm.
can go ahead and dive into it. So the brothers, the men out there, can have a little bit more clarity as to what some of the types of quote unquote personalities that they might come across. So this comes from shouts out to this content creator. This page called Illionaires. They dropped some pretty good content about relationships. So the first one was the performer. She wants the spotlight, not the mission. Number two was the princess. She was raised, not built. Number three was the parasite. She feeds but never fuels. And number four, the partner. She protects her name like it's her own. How many of these individuals have you come across in your experience?
Uh, that was good. In my opinion, I done came across all of them. I done came across women who were the performer. I've seen them. We've seen them in the rooms that we're in and the rooms that I've been in. The princess, of course, we all seen the princess. The one who thinks she's entitled.
Mhm.
Uh, the parasite. We see the woman that just uses and absorbs everything that she can get out of you. And then we've seen the partner. We've seen the woman that represents your name and interested in building legacy and that's willing to work with you to work together. I ran into every last single one of these, and I think that this was great how he broke it down because it was very interesting when I seen the breakdown of it. How he was saying the performer addicted to attention but has no purpose. It was like we all see these women, that's they just these are the women that get all the BBLs and enhancements and the baby hairs down to their ass and the eyelashes about to fly away. What I'm saying? It's like, it's all this attention, look at me, but at the same time, they don't have no purpose. No purpose, no plan, no fight, no drive, no nothing going on. It's just all centered around getting attention on them.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then we ran into the princess woman, you know, uh, raised to be adored, not equipped to build. She don't know how to build. Everything is just like it should be given to me on a silver platter. Like I don't know, like I should just sit here and you just cater to me. Like the Beyonce song. Cater to me. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever I wish. What's your wish is my command. It's like we seen that woman. They just want. They want you to pay for their hair. They want you to pay for the nails. They want you to pay their rent. They want you to pay their cell phone bill. They want you to pay the babysitter if you take them out. They want you to buy them clothes. They want you to pay for the vacation. You got to pay for the meals when you go out. You got to pay for everything. Like and it's not that we're saying a man shouldn't do these things in some circumstances, but to have an expectation or an entitlement for it where you don't accept nothing other than this is just that's where we have some issues at with women. And then you have the parasite. Oh, the one that just latches on to you. The parasites aren't even attracted to you. They don't even necessarily like you, but they will drain you dry for whatever it is that you got. Whatever, if you got money, if you got a connection, if you got a position, if you got, a car, they'll have you in their phone as, dude with the Lambo, and just will suck you dry for whatever it is that you have that they could benefit from. And then, of course, last but definitely not least, is the partner, the one that understands her femininity, understands her position, understands her role, and how to, strategically, work with the man, and represent him, and knows that when she's out in these streets without him, that she's a representation of her husband, and their family and their legacy, and she understands that and respects that, and values that, and acts accordingly. We don't see, that means she's not out with her titties hanging out. She's not out, dressed all salacious. She listens to her husband when he says, babe, you might not want to be out there, after 9 o'clock, and she understands that. So she's about it at 8:30, because she don't want to put her man in a position where he might have to crash out, over something that ain't even relevant, but those are the partners, people that work together. And yeah, I definitely seen them all. What you guys say about them?
I mean, I've seen them all. I've experienced them all personally as well. Going back to the point of men, like what value is this in the, is there in them knowing this? It's understanding that you are the producer of your life, and like everything else in life, you're gonna have to have a script. So when you're thinking about that role for wife, partner, parasite, pretender, and whatever other
Performer
performer,
princess.
performer, princess, partner, and parasite. You got to really take that into consideration when you're coming up with this script and you're inventing this story that you want to create for yourself in the not so distant future. And that's something that a lot of men don't necessarily take in consideration due to lust. And that decision ultimately comes back to bite a lot of men in the backside in regards to what they're able to do in life now, because again, now they have, in some instances, this STD they got to deal with, or in some cases a STD and a child, or just a
Hmm.
child,
Hmm.
which is quote unquote something that they didn't necessarily plan for in their script.
Hmm.
And now they gotta go ahead and do what's they call rewrites. You gotta go do a rewrite. Now you gotta include this new character called your child, or this new affliction, called
Yeah.
this STD.
Yeah.
And that's something that people really don't take into consideration from my point of view. And if more people start taking their position in life a little bit more seriously, and realizing that they do have the power to create that script, and then take the steps necessary to quote unquote produce it and turn it into a reality, they will start getting the type of results that they want. But you know depending on somebody else to take your vision and turn it into a reality is one of the most challenging and difficult things
And I
to
just
do in life.
and I just thought of something, for all the ladies that watch us out there. These categories could be applied to men.
Oh yeah, the
You
prince,
could have a
the
performer.
performer, the
You could
parasite.
have the one that thinks he's the prince. I would still say princess, because anytime you feel as though you should, I think that's a
I was just
feminine.
thinking recently, bro. If we would have had that should button, I think we would have probably been on number 3 or 4 by now. Because I would have just
I
been
think that's the first time we said it.
all right.
Cause
Should
yeah,
uh
we said it
no, not
earlier.
we.
I did.
Oh, buddy.
Oh, why you say no? We
Because
supposed
like I
to.
said, it got to the point where I'll be like, man, I'll just be sitting up here all day. But I just realized that because I thought about it earlier, but I was like, man, I gotta call him out now because
Cause I thought about it earlier, and I was like, all right, making sure I'm not saying shit. I was like, I don't think I said
bro.
it. All right, my bad. But to the point that I was making, that this can be applied to men as well for women. You have performer, you have the prince,
Mhm.
you have the parasite, and you have a partner.
Mhm.
So it's not just one sided. We're not just, you know, coming at the woman, but this is something that could be broken down in on both sides of the fence.
It's important also to understand from the male perspective when we look at this now dynamic of the prince, the parasite, the partner, the performer. Again, ladies, like you have to be mindful of this when you're coming up with your script, because the reality is when a man and a woman is coming together, they're trying to merge these scripts. So it has to begin with a rewrite in that regard. You know, their whole relationship, because again, you're combining two different
Two
cultures,
different stories.
two different stories. You're trying to make it into one. And we have that's why you need to be objective. You know, that's why you just can't be subjective and stuck in your solipsistic mindset, because solipsistic mindset being, you know, me at the end of the day, that's what creates the conflict within yourself that has you lashing out like that as a solipsistic person. But now also too, most likely the man or woman that you're dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna now turn to put themselves in conflict, and now
Mm-hmm.
y'all, you know, bumping heads,
Right.
and you aren't able to achieve the result that you set out to achieve here.
Mm-hmm.
Be mindful that, again, when it comes to the male side of this, that you know you have to be conscious of the fact that a performer is a performer, and they don't do quote unquote parasitic things as often as a parasite, because within all of these things you might have a little bit of the other one in there. You know, you might have some hybrids. You know, you can have a guy who is a partner, but he might have some parasitic performer
Mm-hmm.
or princess moments,
Mm-hmm.
but he's predominantly a partner,
Mm-hmm.
and same applies to all the other ones. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be moments in time, but the reality is what's their baseline.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's the benchmark?
What's their MO?
What's their mo? And if the mo is that of a parasite, then you as a woman or a man have to realize that, okay, like, am I going to legally attach myself to this parasite, or am I just going to have fun with them?
Yeah.
The choice is yours, but it's the same for every other dynamic that you would have in place. And so, again, if you're dealing with a performer, then 9 times out of 10 that could be a performer. Yeah, they might have partner moments. Yeah, they might have parasitic moments and performer moments. But
Mm-hmm.
the reality is you know they are who they are. You know, their mo is their mo. So you have to make a decision if that's the type of character you want to be with, you know, for quote unquote, you know, forever in a day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You know, and then you made a great point. That you may find a partner that might have some princess qualities, or you might find a princess that have a some performer qualities, but understanding what their baseline is
Hmm.
and what's their main operating system in their mind, how they operate and how they go about things is very crucial to making decisions on selecting whoever you choose to move forward with long
Hmm.
term. And so yeah, just it's not just one or nothing. Like there's we are all a variation of all these different things at different points. I would suggest. And no one person, no one man, no one woman is a monolith. Like they're not all the same way and all do the same thing. And then sometimes we do have a little parasitic tendencies sometimes, and sometimes we do have a little pampered princess tendencies. Sometimes you do have a little performer tendencies, and sometimes but ultimately, you need to be that partner at the baseline. The
Hmm.
baseline should be the partner. You can have derivatives of these other ones coming from a partner perspective, but if the baseline or the other ones is like, you might end up, in a position that's not beneficial.
I would agree. Partner definitely is the baseline.
Hmm.
Partner is definitely the benchmark. If more people started moving as partners, I believe we would see a lot more healthier marriages, healthier partnerships, healthier people shacking up. We would just see healthier relationships, and then that could become the narrative. However, my theory is partly due to some solipsism,
Hmm.
that we ultimately have men and women stuck in their subjectivity, the fog of their subjectivity, as I like to call it, where again everything's about fear, obligation, and guilt. They aren't able to see through it, so now
I like
again
that fog,
they
fair obligation and guilt.
they are shouts out to the creator I got that from. But yeah, fog. They this the fog of their subjectivity, they can't see through it. So that's why they can't be objective, and it's going to be challenging, dealing with them. It's kind of like trying to drive or fly or take a motorcycle through a thunderstorm. It's going
Mm.
to be real crazy. That's going to be a real crazy relationship.
Mhm.
So in order for that sun that sun to come out, you're gonna have to let that storm pass. But you got to
Mm.
be that sun in regards to, again, being that individual that has reached a level of self mastery, where again you are conscious of your position as a partner,
Mhm.
even though you may have some moments where you do behave as a prince, princess, a performer, or a parasite. But for the most part, your baseline is that of a partner, and now you're able to move forward with your partner, ideally. However, we do know that there are people who are operating as partners that are with parasites. We got
Mhm.
performers,
Mhm.
with princesses
Yep. Mhm.
or princes. We
Mhm.
got partners with princesses,
Mhm.
and it creates a dynamic where now the narrative is, quote unquote, marriages don't work or
Yeah, I'm
relationships don't work.
unhappy. Like I'm ready to move
From
on.
my perspective, it's not that these institutions aren't working. It's just the individuals, the characters that are engaging in these institutions aren't in alignment with each
Wrong
other.
cast.
It's the wrong cast.
Mhm.
Exactly. You just got the wrong cast for your production. That's
Mhm.
what it boils down to. And the crazy part about that is a lot of times we hear people saying that, oh, they got to be the one for me. Well, the man that's for me or the woman that's for me, they go be that or they go be this. So there's seems to be this level of consciousness in regards to understanding that this the need for this specific cast in order to work with you. But when it actually comes to you being in that chair and actually picking a person for that role, that's where it all seems to break down at.
Yeah. And sometimes a lot of us are left just with what we have. It's like, we get faced with time. People get older. You didn't have one too many children. Sometimes our physical appearance, a lot of things, our self esteem starts to go down. So you start making decisions, you just whatever's there, whoever's there at the bottom. All right, that's what I'm gonna pick. And sometimes, that's why a lot of relationships and things like that really don't manifest or flourish the way they should. So making sure that yourself, making sure that your securities is on point, making sure you're not making choices and decisions based out of desperation or based out of low self-esteem or depression, stuff like that. If you do self inventory and make sure that you're functioning high within yourself and all you're kicking on all cylinders are fired and you going, you'll make your and inevitably make better decisions, far as the people that you choose to have in your life and make decisions to move forward with. A lot of times, like I was saying, I hate to reiterate, but we make decisions based out of bad circumstances, and so that's how we end up caught up with maybe somebody that's not necessarily the fit.
Bad circumstances do exist, tough times do exist, and
Absolutely.
that's when you have to ramp up that sense of self mastery.
Yeah.
We have to be mindful that when it comes to selecting our cast, being men, for the rest of our lives, and this ain't just applicable to your wife. You got your other castmates.
Mhm.
You got your best friend. Your
Mhm.
homie, your business associates.
Absolutely.
Your kids coach.
Mhm.
You gonna have to be picking the cast for your production throughout your whole entire life.
The school you send the kids to, all types of things.
All
Yes.
those types of things. So you have to be mindful of making sure that these people fit within your script. But in order for them to fit within your script, you have to create that script in the first place. And we all have a script. We're just not thinking of it as a script. But be mindful that you always have the ability to make the changes. You always have the ability to do the rewrites. You always have the ability to recast. You don't always have to stick to this script. Now, of course, make sure that it warrants it. You just
Mhm.
can't be changing cast members just because they said one thing or they did one thing.
They ain't remember one line.
Right. But or they had again they had a princess. They were partner, but then they had a princess moment. So now your position is that I didn't know you had that in you, so I can. But because the reality is we all have that dynamic at play at
Yes.
all times. Even if you're so if you're a woman that's a princess and you thought you was dealing with a man who was a partner, but he had a parasitic performer or a princess moment,
Mhm.
that's just what it was. But he is who he is,
Yeah.
or she is who she is. If you're looking at it from the man's perspective,
Allow grace, right?
grace, exactly. If we have more grace in our relationships, when people do have these moments, the same grace that we give to our children, well, at least some parents,
Mhm.
some parents whoop that ass
Mm.
without hesitation, no grace at all. But again, I do believe that if we infuse a little bit more grace into our
And get
relationships,
outside of that solipsistic
get
mindset.
outside of the elliptic mindset of, well, this is how, again, that repeating that script that you quote unquote was raised off of, thinking that's the only way.
Mhm.
If we can get out of that and develop a sense of objectivity and start to be mindful, again, we can do our own rewrites, we can do our own recasting, and being conscious of the things that we are writing and the people that we are casting, for our production called our life. I know that we will be able to have, as people like to say, healthier relationships, whether it's friendships,
Absolutely.
whether it's marriages, whether it's business partnerships,
Mhm.
etc.
And I've been, and I have to be transparent that I've been a victim of my own solipsistic mindset when it comes to a lot of things, relationships, friendships, and all types of things. I had to learn to get out of that and understand that there's other ways of doing things, and there's other perspectives,
Hmm.
and there's just because someone does something that you might perceive as offensive doesn't mean it was intended in an offensive manner.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So when you understand that, the way you perceived it is not always the way things are intended, that's step one of getting outside of your sadistic mindset. You got to understand that just because you felt offended doesn't mean they were offending you.
Hmm.
And so once I started to grow in that area, I started to have better friendships, better relationships, better conversations, better encounters, better outings.
Hmm.
It becomes a better time.
Hmm. I would agree wholeheartedly. So if you are a fella, if you are a man, you are a dude, however you like to label yourself in, you do consider yourself to be that partner. You do consider yourself to be that parasite, that performer, or that princess. You have to be mindful that who you cast as your counterpart, it matters. And you need someone who's going to be in alignment with your MO at the end of
Hmm.
the day. And as a partner, again, to me, partners are best with partners.
Right.
Princes and princesses is best, or princesses is best together. Best
Hmm.
is the best match for each other.
Hmm.
If performers are the best matches for each other, and parasites is the best match. Y'all can feed off of each other. You know what I mean?
Good luck. Good luck with that, cuz.
Now that's going to be a very tumultuous
Yes, that's
relationship,
where you have the
and we but
tumultuous.
but we see them, and unfortunately, a lot of them end in death in penitentiary, to the graveyard or the prison,
Hmm.
and you hate to see it, and you wish that that type of relationship could have been avoided if one of them would have had the ability to reach a level of self mastery, to be able to get conscious of the situation so that they can then do their best to guide their spouse through their
Hmm.
solipsism, see through that fog, that fear, that obligation, and that guilt, to keep repeating these stories to themselves so that they can move forward and y'all can move forward and have this healthy relationship that you desire.
And to obtain that self mastery, that comes with a time of isolation where you have
Yes.
to separate yourself. Like you can't be trying to uh, do the self mastery at the same time dating and still entertaining different women that you want to be with, because if you're not fully arrived at the master level within self, you're still going to fall short. you're still going to run into these walls and have these hiccups, and you're not going to fully understand everything that's within you
Hmm.
that needs to be discovered or elevated.
Right.
So mind you all, when we're having these when we reaching this mastery level of self, it requires us being by ourselves and focusing on ourselves. And then once we get to the point where we understand what makes our own self tick, and how we are simplistic in some things,
Hmm.
and how we're narrow minded in some things, and how we, may always feel that we're right, or always feel like we need something, or somebody should always, quote unquote, do something. Uh, you start to, retrain yourself. You start to highlight it and notice it, and then once you notice the egregious behavior, when you know better, you'll do better. You can start to change it and correct it and be aware of it. So, not to say you ain't gonna make mistakes, that you ain't gonna slip up, because like you said, the healing, when you was talking about healing, like being healed means doesn't mean everything goes away.
Hmm.
Like with every tendencies that you had just disappear. No, but you know how to manage it. You're aware of it, and you know that when it presents itself, you know how to deal with it.
Hmm.
And so when you get to that level, then you're ready to move forward to engage with another human being that did the work on their behalf as well.
Yep. So, final words on, 4 types of women, gentlemen. When it comes to you producing your life, this story, you're gonna have to pick a cast, and you're gonna have to choose between these 4 types of women. Now, of course, someone's gonna come around and create their own 4, but on this episode, these are the 4 we're working with.
Yeah, covers
You
the general
you go
basis.
have you go have these basic 4 types of women to choose from, and the world is filled with all these women. You just gotta now realize that you might feel lust for a parasite, you might feel lust for a princess, you might feel lust for a performer, but those are just the women you have to have fun with. You can't legally attach yourself to those types of women unless you are the said parasite, performer, or princess, and that's just what works best for you, quote unquote. But
God
if
bless you.
ideally we're talking about the best outcome here, so partners. So as a man and as a woman, you want to get with a partner. You want to be with a partner. You want to choose a partner. That's the cast. That's who you casting for that role. That counterpart of yours.
Hmm.
And the more clarity you can give yourself on who you are through self mastery, so you can have a better understanding of what your values, what your views, what your belief systems are. That'll give you the ability now to align yourself, with a counterpart, who you're similar with, because you're never gonna get 100% congruency in that regards,
No.
but you at least want to be in the same ballpark. You at
Hmm.
least want to be on the same page with this person.
Compatibility. Yeah, you got to be compatible.
You want to make sure that y'all, quote unquote, connect and y'all fit.
Yep.
And again, partners will be partners. Now, again, your partner might have a parasite moment, they might have a performer moment, or they might have a princess moment,
Hmm.
but they're still who they are.
They still a solid partner.
And you just have to be able to give them the grace in that moment to have that moment, and then you guys talk about it, and then you move forward.
Move on. Yep. Hey, there we go. Some more game that we putting out there. And once again, females, this apply to y'all when y'all looking at men. These same P's, 4 P's, you can have a male performer, male princess, there could be a male parasite, and ultimately you want a male partner. So it's not just one side of here. So don't just think we're coming at y'all, but we're talking to our men because we are men. So till the next time, keep challenging yourself, keep asking questions, and keep the ripples rippling. I'm your boy Quattro,
I'm Diesel.
and we out.